G'day, it's Jamie, and welcome to Where's My Yowie. Today, I'm reading a couple of old newspaper reports about a big cat or thylacine sighting near Goulburn in 1903, so we'll get into it. This first article was published in Sydney's Evening News on Wednesday, the 25th of February 1903, titled The Merulan Tiger. Marulan, Tuesday. A report that a tiger is at large in the vicinity of Meruland has caused some sensation. The school teacher from Canyon Lee was attacked by the animal on Sunday night as he was riding from town on horseback when 6 miles out. The horse was severely scratched and the teacher is suffering from shock. John Felt, a settler, reports having seen an animal, supposed to be a tiger, on Saturday while out shooting. The animal was lying down in the scrub 4 miles from town. Search parties have observed traces of the beast, but have so far failed to capture it. The end. Okay, so this next article was published in the Goulburn Evening Penny Post on Thursday, the 5th of March 1903, titled The Meruland Tiger. When it was first reported that a tiger had been seen in the vicinity of Meruland, very little notice was taken, as most people thought it was only a delusion or something after the type of the hairy man that was seen at Meruland a few years ago. About 3 weeks ago, some boys, sons of Mr. J. O'Neill of Springs Ponds, while out rabbiting about a quarter of a mile from the Spring Ponds homestead, came suddenly across a large animal, which they thought at first was a large dog, lying under the shade of a tree. But on approaching, they were startled by the large size of the brute and its peculiar growl. They at once beat a hasty retreat. One of the boys, who was carrying a rifle, turned to fire, and according to the boy's story, he would have drilled daylight through the monster had not his rifle become choked in the second attempt. As there was no reported tiger to be at large at the time, there was no further notice taken of the boy's story. But now there is every reason to believe that they dropped on some strange animal. The end. Okay, so this next article was published in the Albury Banner and Wodonga Express on Friday, 13th of March 1903, titled The Merulan Tiger. Mr. A.J. Buttsworth, public school teacher at Canyon Lee, is reported to have written the following account of adventures with a tiger seen recently near Meruland. The tiger was first seen about 4 miles from Meruland by a very reliable man named Felt on Saturday, February 26th. He was out rabbit shooting and was within 25 yards of the animal before seeing it. The tiger was lying in the head of a fallen tree, watching the man intently. But as the shooter only had a shotgun, he wisely declined a battle. Covering the beast with his gun, the man cautiously backed away for some distance and then bolted for home. It was then dusk, so he waited until morning and then gathered his neighbours, about 8. They searched all day on Sunday, but without result. I was spending Sunday with some friends beyond Meruland, and on arriving back in town about 8 p.m, was told of a tiger, and advised not to go home that night, as I would have to pass near where the beast had been seen. I laughed at the whole affair, and remarked that perhaps the man imagined he saw a tiger, believing the whole thing to be a delusion. I set out on my journey in a happy mood, having 12 miles to go. It was all thick bush, and I had got halfway when my horse, who had been jogging along easily, all of a sudden gave a tremendous snort and bounded across the road. At the same moment, the tiger, which must have been crouching behind a bush, came bounding at me with gaping mouth and eyes which glared like bullseye lanterns. He made about 4 bounds, growling fiercely all the time, and before I could scarcely realise my position, let alone gather up my reins, the horse was at a mad gallop down the road. About 150 yards ahead was a big swinging gate, where my road branched off at right angles to the main one. In my endeavours to pull up the horse, it slivered the full length of the gate on his haunches and cannoned into the far gate post. He was up again in an instant and, breasting the gate, sent it flying. I looked back and could see the flaming eyes of the tiger, and although feeling pretty certain he had given up the chase, yet my hair was up and my blood cold, for I suppose both my horse and self had a mild panic. So off I set down the road, for I had not a guarantee that the brute would not change his mind and come after me. Another 200 yards and a small creek had to be crossed. On reaching the bottom, down we went into the bed of loose sand. On recovering, the wild chase from a supposed pursuer was renewed. For a mile or two, the road was now a bush bridle track, and the way we made the dead limbs fly and the stumps and logs rattle must have struck terror into the hearts of every bush creature for miles around. I got one nasty knock on the shoulder, and the old horse lost several pieces of skin. 3 miles from the scene, I struck a neighbour's house, and when I related my adventure, the occupants were much scared. The 2 men who lived a mile away would not budge until they got horses to ride and a gun apiece. I stayed at the house all night, and next morning visited the spot where my mishap occurred. There were tracks as plain as could be where the tiger had crouched, and the footprints on the road where he had bounded towards me. On the gate post I found a bunch of hair my horse had left behind, also traces of his slide. These, together with my tracks in the creek, convinced my companions of the truth of my story. On Monday I had to attend school, but a dozen residents, mounted and armed, made an unsuccessful search for his lordship. On Tuesday, a second search was made, but also fruitless. On Tuesday afternoon, the tiger was seen again 5 miles from Marulan, but in another direction. So a mounted party was organised for Thursday, men attending from all round to the number of 43, whilst a second party of 8 was out also. Both parties were unsuccessful, but a couple of sheep were found ripped open and the choice parts devoured, this being a characteristic habit. On Saturday, another party made a fruitless search, and now the general belief is that the intruder has gone into the impenetrable gullies which lead towards Shoalhaven. Of course, many discredit the whole affair, especially as search parties were unsuccessful, but the scrub is so thick that an animal could be within a few yards and then get away unseen. Many of the schools around have scarcely a pupil left, and I'm afraid the scare will not vanish in a hurry. People do not venture out at night, and all carry firearms, ranging from the venerable Black Bess to the latest repeaters. In fact, the whole place is in a state of terror. The end. Okay, so this last article was published in the Bowel Free Press on Wednesday, the 18th of March, 1903, titled The Merulan Tiger. The Evening News says that the Merulan Tiger, about which so much has been recounted of late, is in reality a young leopard which an officer had brought back with him from South Africa, and which has escaped from his master's control, subsequently amusing itself by chasing peaceable citizens and otherwise harrowing the feelings of the people of Merulan. The owners, with visions of a huge bill of expenses for moral and intellectual damage, is lying very low and keeps on saying nothing. He hopes nobody ever saw him with the leopard in his possession and is now studying the law on the subject. This is said to be the explanation of the Merulan mystery. As a set-off to this, it is reported that the Merulan Tiger has been seen at Curranduli, Bungendore, and that he has killed several sheep. This animal must surely be possessed of the fleetness of wind, reports from time to time being circulated of existence in the district. One day it was killing sheep near Mossvale, while with the swiftness of thought it had crossed the country and was climbing the rugged hills near Belmore Falls. No sooner were the residents aware of this fact that we were listening to a thrilling tale of adventure near Mittagong, in which the tiger had been laid low by a few shots from a breech loader. There is evidently more myth than reality about this tiger incident. The end. Well, that's a really amazing, interesting story. It's really interesting, like the guy's out riding his horse and the thing wanted to attack him and like took a chunk out of the horse, scratched it and all that, and then it came back again and wanted another go at him, and like some kids have seen him and they said it was like a large dog, so I'm wondering if it's like a thylacine. And then there's like being seen everywhere, so like there's obviously more than one. And then with the guy that was fighting in the Boer War that brought a supposed leopard cub back from South Africa with him, and that got away, and they're saying that's what the Merulan Tiger is. That's all possible that this guy did lose a leopard. There's no denying that. I reckon that's probably true. But what's interesting is when you see something with stripes, you say it's a tiger. If it's got no stripes, you wouldn't call it a tiger. If it had spots, you'd probably say it was a leopard. So how come everyone's saying that they've seen a tiger with stripes when they're saying that no, it's a leopard? Well, leopards have spots, not stripes. So it's interesting that like several people have seen this thing all over the country and they're all saying it's got stripes. And I know for a fact that there was maybe one or two tigers could have been lost in the bush. That's quite possible, like Bengal tigers. But I'm more the idea that they're thylacines that people are seeing, and they're seeing lots of them. Okay, that's it from me. I'll get back to you all next time. Bye.